Okay, so let's go. During the Second World War, the Nazis implemented the final solution of the Jewish question. What means the systematic and physical elimination of all Jews out of Europe. It begins from the end of the summer 41 by the Einsatzgruppen, so the extermination squads, and afterwards they were created since December 41 death center, extermination centers, where Jews were deported and most of the time immediately killed. For example, in Birkenau, the most important of these extermination centres, an estimated 865,000 Jews were killed immediately after arrival. That means that they didn't go into the camp, but that they were condemned to death immediately after the selection. In total, we can estimate that some 6 million Jews were killed and destroyed. We have a lot of infrastructures and documents who were destroyed by the Nazis when at the end of the war, but still there is a lot of sources, official or unofficial sources, which made that the Shoah an undeniable historical event. Anyone who denies the Shoah called himself a revisionist, or we call them negationists. So I will quickly make a semantic clarification about those two words. Revisionism is based on a critical approach to a rational revision of opinions generally accepted in history by non-specialists. The revisionism is based on new sources and proposes a new interpretation of history, but it always respects the historical rules for criticism. Negationism is totally different. It is in no way a part of scientific research or approach. Negationism is a lie, which is not based on a critical approach or an innovative analysis or interpretation of sources, but it is a perverse and depraved, malicious and ideological manipulation that pursues different goals. The first of these goals is to relieve Nazi Germany from its responsibility during the genocide. It's also to present Germany and the German and Palestinian people as victims of the Jews, to make Jews guilty of the Second World War, and so to make them also guilty of their own extermination. The one other goal of negationism is also to sow doubt by spreading conspiracy ideas and engaging in hypercriticism to discredit any testimonies or work done by historians. It wants also to recover totalitarian ideas or anti-Semitism, and at least the last goal is to question the existence of the State of Israel. So Holocaust denial exists thanks to a few ideologists, many ignorant people, but always anti-Semitic and racist people. We can make a parallel between the speech of Hitler in the Reichstag on 30 January 39, and the founding postulate of negationism, like Faurisson did write it. So in the speech of Hitler on the Reichstag, he said, "I want once again to be a prophet. If the international finance jury inside and outside of Europe should succeed in plunging the peoples of the earth once again into a world war, the result will not be the Bolshevization of earth, and thus the Jewish victory, but the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe." And then, to make a parallel, here is the speech of Faurisson at the Radio Européen in 80. The alleged Hitlerian gas chambers and the alleged genocide of the Jews constitute one and the same historical lie, which has permitted a gigantic political and financial swindle whose main beneficiaries are the State of Israel and international Zionism, and whose main victims are the German people, but not their leaders, and the Palestinian people in their entirety. So in both of those statements, the blame of the victims, the Jews, is placed by a rhetorical road to the persecutor, the perpetrators, and the persecutors are absolved of their responsibility in Hitlerian crimes. So in this presentation, I will first draw an historical overview of negationism with these different phases of its development, and I will try to put the focus on Belgium and the Netherlands. But of course, France played such an important role in the development of negationism that France stayed the main important topic here. Alors, those phases are from 48, sorry, till say 67. I'm thinking in Flemish, so that's why I inverse the numbers. This is the moment of the origin of Holocaust denial. 48 is the moment where Israel was created, and 67 is the moment of the Six-Day War. Afterwards, it has a phase of maturation. Afterwards, from 78 to 55, it's really an explosion where negationism will spread in the world, and from 2000 till now, we are facing globalization of the phenomenon. The first important person in the development of in the creation of negationism are French, and that is Maurice Bardèche and Paul Racinier. They produced their first books in 48. So Maurice Bardèche is a right-wing extremist intellectual. He is also from the family of Brasillac, Robert Brasillac, who was the only French collaborator, pro-Nazi collaborator, who was sentenced to death for ideological crime. And he inherited of this vision of Brasillac. So in his book called Nuremberg or the Promised Land, he accuses the victors of the Second World War of having invented the Judeocide to make people forget the crimes they have committed. So he wants in any way to rehabilitate Nazism and pro-Nazism and anti-Semitism. And he was the founder of the first basis of anti-denial. Racinier has another profile. He was a former resistance fighter who was deported and interned in Buchenwald and also to Dora. And he began to read a lot about deportation in some testimonies, and in those testimonies there was some witnesses spoke about gas chambers. But in Buchenwald there were no gas chambers, so according to his experience, which he considered as universal, everybody who was talking about gas chambers was a liar. And so he explained that the experiences of the survivor of Auschwitz can in no way be different of these of survivors from other concentration camps. In 1950 he published Le Mensonge d'Ulysse, where he explained also that it wasn't the Nazis who were the criminals in the concentration camp, but the capos. So all the crimes were committed by capos, and Nazis has nothing to do with that. In a second book, he goes obviously right to suspicious revisionism. He denounces the genocide as a deception committed by the international Jewish conspiracy. Hitler, in this point of view, became the unfortunate victim of the Jews who had provoked the war. In his way of thinking, there is a double inversion. So the victims are no longer the same, the perpetrators are no longer the same, and obviously the Jews are the cause of all problems and the Germans are their victims. In Belgium, his book was translated for the first time and distributed by Karel Dillen, who was one of the founders of the Vlaams Blok, now called Vlaams Belang, and he was also the first leader of this party. So it shows from which channel those negationist thinking were widespread, and also which people and which ideas were promoting them. After this first phase, we enter now the maturation. And so in 1967, there is a break in the history of Israel and of Holocaust denial. During the Six-Day War, Israel emerged as a belligerent, aggressive state, Jewish state, and this is totally in contradiction with the image people had from the Jews before, who were passive and victims. The new ideological founder of negationism was François Duprat, a member of the French Front National, and also someone who was quite close from Jean-Marie Le Pen. So he was really the man who brought negationism out of extreme right and who brought this into anti-Zionism. So there's a mutation in the way of thinking. So since this moment, not only the Germans were the victims of the genocide lie, but also the Arabs and the Palestinians. This idea was taken over by Robert Faurisson, who is another important ideologist. Alors, in Belgium, in 1976, there was a publishing house in Braine-le-Comte, in Wallonia, which spreads a lot of negationist writings, but without any real ideologue. So they just take over the books already written by other people out of Belgium, and they translate them to Flemish. They had also one newspaper which was Aro, founded by Xavier Buisseret, Siegfried Verbeke, and Roland Haas, also three important figures into the Vlaams Blok. In the Netherlands, we had also Florie van Toningen. She was the widow of one important Dutch Nazi. Here you see her marriage. This marriage was received the agreement of Heinrich Himmler. After the death of her man, she stood really an active member of negationist and pro-Nazis movements. She was also faithful to her Nazi ideals and regularly caused unrest in Netherlands by spreading Nazi propaganda, organizing meetings, and she was also always under the control of the state. She played in the Netherlands the same role than Siegfried Verbeke in Belgium and also Faurisson in France. In 1978, we are here before an explosion of the denial ideology. It begins with an interview of Darquier de Pellepoix, former important person in the Vichy regime, and he could go to important newspaper, L'Express, Le Monde, also on the radio Europe 1, and he has, together with Faurisson, there is an academic approval of what is said, because Faurisson was a professor of literature at the University in Lyon. The postulate of negationism was then evolved as this Auschwitz and thus the genocide of the Jews is an invention of the great capital to distract the attention of the proletariat and to prevent it from leading its great proletarian revolution. The attention of the masses is so monopolized by Auschwitz and fascism, and the people then doesn't think to be revolutionary or to fight against capitalism. So from this moment on, negationism is anti-capitalist and also anti-fascist. I will jump now to 95. 95, qu'est-ce que je dis? 85.
You have 2 more minutes.
Okay. So we have the time of the scandals with a huge spreading via television, media, also internet and so on, by Henri Roch, also Jean-Marie Le Pen, when he declares that the gas chambers were only one point of details of the Second World War, and all those events in this period created great scandals, and instead of getting the interest for negationism lower, it really explodes. And so now we are entering a new phase where Holocaust denial is now in a phase of globalization. Negationism was exported to new areas, Arab countries, former Soviet republics, South America, Turkey, Sudan, and it's undergoing a new development. So we are also confronted with the changing of international standards, because the lecture of the work was formerly made by a Western way of thinking. And all those countries now are trying to impose their own way of thinking. So the way we are considering the Holocaust or human rights is not universal as we had to think before. So, for example, we have Iran of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who recognizes negationism as the official position of the head of one state, which is recognized by international community. This phenomenon contributed to the spread of denial, and in 2006 he organized this competition for anti-Semitic cartoons. Now I will jump to my conclusion. We have still people from extreme right, but also from extreme left, new revisionists who are working, who are getting stronger, also with an international movement which is structured by from the US with the Institute of Historical Research. And we can say that today anti-Semitism is increasing and spreading. It's no longer the prerogative of some little network of former Nazis. Under the cover of radical anti-Zionism, Holocaust denial brings together extreme rights, extreme left, and also Arab Islamic world. Holocaust denial is the ultimate state of anti-Semitism. In response to Holocaust denial, the perpetrators of such statements are now legally condemned in several countries: Italy, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and so on. But we as historians can think about the efficiency of those laws against Holocaust denial. Are they useful? Are they effective? This is always a point of discussion. They are often used by Holocaust deniers to pretend that they are victims of an official point of view and official discourse. So I think, as an historian, that since the first Holocaust denial, researchers and historians had to be more efficient. They have to make more efforts to handle with this complex and difficult history. I think that knowledge, pedagogy, and education is essential to fight against denial. Everyone is now thinking that we are speaking too much and all the time about the Holocaust, the Judeo-side. Of course it is so, but maybe that there is too much inaccuracy in the discourse which we are spreading to the society, too much confusion, and too much shortcuts. So I think that there is indeed a lot of talk about the Shoah, but perhaps too much, but not correct enough and not good enough. So I finish here.